Alright, this entry will be discussing the second video series done by Elly Ameling. This video discusses imagination, and she sings Mondnacht at the end. This video is very interesting. It discusses the importance of imagination when you're performing art songs, and she also discusses the differences in how your imagination will function when you're performing in an opera versus performing an art song. She brings up an interesting point, being that in an opera, you're working off of a conductor as well as your fellow performers, being their characters. But with an art song, generally it's just you and your pianist. So and you're facing the audience head on. There's no cheating out, so to speak, where you're like kind of at an angle facing your counterpart and the audience. And so it can feel much more personal that way. And also, characters in art songs aren't really laid out unless they're designed to tell a story. Whereas in opera, you have a designated character who's going on a predetermined journey. She said something that really stuck with me. She says, imagination sparks everything. And that got me thinking more and more about the connection that I discussed in the last entry, where I was thinking about the connection between acting and music more and more. Because it reminded me of a few things that I had been told in various acting classes over the years, one of which being that when you're a little kid, you play pretend, right? You play with toys, you have them in all these different scenarios, and you play pretend you're running around outside or whatever it is you're doing, but your mind is actively creating these vivid worlds and scenarios for you to participate in and for you to bring yourself and whoever else you're interacting with into. But as you grow up, social norms and societal standards start to kick in, and it's no longer socially acceptable for you to run around playing pretend in your house. It's no longer acceptable for you to do these things, and that's why it's difficult for people that get into acting later in life, like high school and college. It's difficult for them to do that because they've forgotten what it feels like to let it be okay to just pretend and play and have fun. I remember talking to Charlie about that. Like, he was saying that he didn't consider himself a good actor, but a lot of getting into acting is losing those previous inhibitions that you have. And the other thing was Stephen Weatherby, who's a grad student here. I think he's a grad student, but he teaches one of the acting classes in the School of Theater and Dance. And I took a couple classes with him last year. And one of the things that he brought up consistently with our class is that when you're performing, you are 90% your character and 10% you. And what he means by that is most of your decisions and most of what you do on stage will be informed by your character's actions and thought processes. But there's 10%, he calls it a ghost version of you in the back of your mind going, okay, when this character says this word, I need to cross over to the couch and sit down so that they can do their blocking correctly. And I think there's a very similar concept with opera and art songs, but I think the ratio is a little different. I would say that for opera, the ratio is either 70-30 or 80-20 from character to you, because there's a lot more technique involved in opera. But a lot of your technique is ingrained with your character's decisions. A lot of your technique is written in the music for you. And you're working with the conductor, so you're a bit more conscious of it, and you can make those decisions to look at the conductor part of your character and part of your acting choices. And with art song, I would argue that it's about 50-50, because it is a more casual setting. But for me personally, admittedly, it's more 70-30, because if I think too hard about my own technique, I will mess up, no doubt about it. But it goes to show how delicate the balance is between technique and imagination, and how finding whatever balance works for you will make you all the better as a performer and a musician.